the members of the delegations of the two countries, and all our dear guests. This visit is taking place at an important time. We have all been living in the shadow of war for 3 years, and our greatest hope now is that the war will turn to peace. I told the Prime Minister that we welcome the beginning of the US-Russia negotiations, and we Hungarians are interested in their success. I told the Prime Minister that we are in dispute with the EU member states, which are also our friends and allies, who have decided that the war must be continued by Ukraine. We believe that the continuation of the war is bad, dangerous, and a mistake. We will discuss this in Brussels tomorrow. I welcomed the fact that peace treaties were also negotiated in the EU, and that the North Macedonians and Hungary represented one standing point. We also supported the expansion of the US, which was also accepted by the Security Council. The issue of migration took a significant place in the talks. This is an important issue. I can say that Hungary is grateful to the North Macedonians because they defend their own borders, and therefore they defend us as well. The more they defend their own borders, the less migration attacks they inflict on the southern borders of Hungary. I informed the members of the North Macedonian government that we reject the EU Migration Pact. We will never accept it. I also informed them that we have to pay penalties for this in the EU Friendship Treaty. I told the Prime Minister that the North Macedonians can still be counted on in the EU integration process. Not only because they are ashamed of how slowly this process is progressing, but also because we are supported by them. Because the EU has to improve its competitiveness. I do not see any capacity in the EU today to improve competitiveness, only to expand it. So far, every expansion has improved the EU's competitiveness, including Hungary's integration. We have also reviewed our bilateral relations. Our trade relations are constantly improving. Since the national government in Hungary, trade has increased by 7% since 2010. In our view, North Macedonia and Hungary belong to the same economic region. So does Serbia. We believe that this is a united economic region where cooperation has great economic potential. The problem is that we are within the EU, and they are outside it. This is why we cannot organize this region as a single economic force. What can be done in such a situation? This raises the question that it is not just a visit to the Prime Minister, but a meeting between the two governments. Because the problem that we are within them and outside them can only be solved by building the most intensive intergovernmental relations. This includes the most intensive and deep cooperation between the two governments, as well as the cooperation of the economic systems of the two countries in which the two states must play a role. We have a very strong monetary cooperation between us. We are also planning an intergovernmental economic agreement in the future, but the private sector and the private economy must also play a role alongside the state. This is why we encourage the enterprises of both countries to take part in the most comprehensive possible forms of economic cooperation. Of course, we have reviewed the situation in the Western world, to which we both belong. We see the transatlantic cooperation, which has become obvious to the outside world in recent days, and this transatlantic cooperation is even more conducive to maintaining the most intensive possible relations between the two governments in the future, in the hope of finding common answers to this situation. Honorable Minister, honorable members of the government of North Macedonia, I would also like to thank you for coming before the Hungarian public. We are grateful for your cooperation. We thank you for the assistance we have received in the matter of migration, and we trust in the deeper political and economic cooperation in the present. Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Prime Minister, last night the U.S. President suspended military support for Ukraine. At the same time, the EU summit will be held in Brussels this week. What does the meeting in Brussels mean? What kind of progress can be expected? In particular, in the light of the fact that on Sunday in London, several countries and Ukraine are standing up for military support. What is the Hungarian position on this? I would like to know. Thank you very much.
As far as the expected events are concerned, I will speak with the President of France in Paris tomorrow. After that, there will be a ministerial summit in Brussels on Thursday. What has been possible so far? What has been possible to bridge with communication, with text messaging, with smiling, with press information, cannot now be bridged by anything else. A strategic difference is clearly visible, which the U.S. president's election made inevitable. This is that some want peace and some want war. Until the Vatican, only Hungary and the Slovaks said they wanted war. Sorry, peace. Only the Vatican said that Hungarians and Slovaks wanted peace, and the U.S. and other European countries said that they wanted war. Until then, even if this difference existed, it could not be called decisive. Now that the U.S. is on the side of peace and has stood by our side, I am not saying this because of miscalculation, but this is what it is about. Since we have been here in peace or in a peace camp, this difference cannot be called a difference between war and peace. This is the situation. Some want war and some want peace. We will have to deal with this challenge in tutor talk. I will have to deal with it on Wednesday as well, but this is another matter. The tutor talk ministerial summit, in addition to dealing with this problem, has also announced another agenda. This is about what Europe can and wants to do for the sake of its own military security, regardless of the current Russian-Ukrainian war situation and the transatlantic conflict. This will not be a tactical but a strategic agenda, which will have a financial, technological, commercial, military development and professional aspect to it. We will try to reach an agreement on this as well. I see a greater chance for cooperation here in the second place than in the question of peace and war, which is either white or black.
Prime Minister Orbán. Hungary, as you pointed out, is a very strong supporter of the joining of Macedonia to the EU. However, we see from the EU side that it would be better to join Ukraine first. In the current geopolitical context, does this mean that this is fair from the EU side? Will this not lead to us being demotivated by this?
Of course, this is not fair. But it is not my job to give voice to the moral uprising of the right-wing Macedonians. They will do that. I, as a leader of a state that has agreed for a long time to join the EU first, so I am familiar with this whole process, I find it shameful what the EU is doing here. I could name other countries in the Western Balkans that are not fair to what Brussels is doing. But the biggest disgrace, unfairness, expulsion is in the case of Macedonia. Prime Minister Orbán said that the joint negotiations had been double-sided, i.e., he allowed each member state to make conditions for Macedonia, and he referred to double-sided negotiations. He said that Brussels should have helped to resolve these issues. This is why the biggest moral uprising of the EU today is against North Macedonia. This is the situation. Of course, Hungary, without underestimating its own weight and strength, has to admit that this European attitude cannot change on its own. What we can do is that, as a member state of the European Union, we work together as closely as possible in financial, economic, cultural, security, police, and North Macedonia. This does not prevent integration, but it is sufficient for a small integration. A special North Macedonian-Hungarian relationship system is being created, which can accelerate the process of EU integration. And, as I said, it helps to create the region, which, regardless of the EU, is a large and strong community of North Macedonia, Serbia, and Hungary. I can help you with this. Thank you.
The Prime Minister did indeed speak with the U.S. President on Sunday. What did they talk about? And what is your opinion on what happened in the Serbian parliament where on the first day of the spring session, opposition representatives clashed? Thank you.
There is a growing and intensifying relationship between the United States and Hungary. This can be identified at all levels, in economic life, at the lower levels of government, in diplomacy, at the middle and highest levels. I would like to say that from now on, it is not worth mentioning that the Hungarian Prime Minister spoke with the U.S. President. This is how it usually is when necessary. There is no particular mention of the fact that today the Hungarian Foreign Minister meets the U.S. Foreign Minister. I suggest that you look at this as a normal part of life, because the United States continues the same civil war in order to save the West, as Hungary does here. This cooperation between us is not simply a tactical or economic cooperation, but it has a deeper basis. We are in a civil war. The progressives are on one side, and the patriots are on the other. This is why the new government of the United States, Hungary, and a few other European political forces have come together. This is all I have to say. What was I talking about? The answer is that everything. As for the other question, of course, Serbia is Serbia's business. I would not qualify this, but I would only say what belongs to us, Hungarians. The fact is that since the patriots have won in the United States, the destabilization efforts have intensified here. I think Serbia is also suffering from this. There are three countries at the crossroads: Serbia, Hungary, and Hungary. This global financial and political machine that exists in the world, we can give it different names, but it is a large machine. It has previously occupied the United States government. It has occupied Brussels and a few European member states as well, including Hungary. We had to drive them out of here in order to commemorate our ongoing struggle for the defense of our country, and we are now planning a final closure with Husvet. These global financial forces have lost Washington, have retreated to Brussels, and are now fighting against the Central European states. In these three countries, Serbia, Slovakia, and Hungary, there are patriots in the government. And this is the result of what you have just seen. I do not want to comment on an event, but on an ongoing process in Slovakia, as well as in Serbia, and it can be discovered in Hungary, to a lesser extent. These networks have trustworthy people. They have rich people who pay them, feed them, support them, give them recommendations. So what we see in this region is a complex period. I think that all three countries can defend their own stability. I wish Serbia a lot of success, and Hungary's national interest is that it is surrounded by stable countries, as Hungary is, and that no one is destabilized among the countries that are important to us. From this point of view, although we do not have a neighbor, North Macedonia, but from a political and regional point of view, we have a responsible neighbor policy, and this includes Macedonia as well. We support those countries in this region whose stability is important to Hungary. So we are not just helping North Macedonia or acting on humanitarian grounds, but North Macedonia's stability is a key issue for Hungary's security. This is why we work together with them. Wherever we need help, they also help us. So here we have a regional common interest system, which is why Hungary provides financial assistance to Macedonia, and why China offers us economic cooperation opportunities. Behind this, I say again, there is not only sympathy and common history, but there is also a well-established Hungarian national interest. I bring the Hungarian government to North Macedonia for favorable financial decisions, because this is not only good for Hungary, but also for the Hungarians, that North Macedonia is a stable country. In the same way, it is very important for us that Serbia is a stable country and that Slovakia is a stable country, because only then can we make Hungary's security and development possible.